Hello library friends, and welcome to another episode of Paper Cuts. Today we're going to be learning how to make a water lily. Now this is a slightly more advanced model. It's a little more difficult. It requires a little more work to get all the folds right. And as you can see, the pink one is folded incorrectly, which may actually be easier because there's fewer folds. I will show you how to make the little purple one. So we're going to start by folding our paper into a big triangle. Again, as we've talked about, make sure all of your sides line up. Make sure you're doing good creases because this does affect your final product. All right, now open it up and you're going to make a big triangle in the other way because you're going to need these lines to guide you to find the middle of the paper. So we're going to line up our sides, and then we're going to open it back up, and we're going to have kind of like a crosshairs to mark the middle of the paper for us. Open it back up, and then we're going to fold the corners to the middle and try to make this as exact as possible. Going to fold all our corners in. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to fold the corners into the middle again. There's a lot of folding in this one, so it begins to get pretty stiff. It gets a little difficult to fold. That's why I consider it more difficult. Not because there's that many folds, but because it gets a little tricky to keep everything straight, to keep everything lined up, and just to make those folds at a certain point, because we're gonna do it again. All right, now I've got all of my corners folded to the middle again. And now I'm going to do it again. And you can see this is where it begins to get kind of difficult. The paper is really thick. It doesn't want to fold neatly. You have to kind of make sure you're not getting any wrinkles. You have to really push down on it. And one more left. See, it's a little bit of a struggle. It's not all even, but you got to do the best you can. Make sure you get those creases really well. And then we're going to turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. This is the last time. And now you can see it's getting really difficult. You really have to kind of fight with those corners. This is one of those models where you kind of have to just almost tease the paper into place. You have to work with it. You can't just fold it and be done. You have to kind of wriggle it around and really play with the angles and make sure you're getting the best fold you can, because it is a little difficult here. But we are almost done. One more. Can I make it? The last one is the hardest one. It does not want to fold. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our corners, and you're going to fold them in just a little. You're going to kind of round off your corners, and this is going to help with the next step. How much do you fold them in? Just a little, a lot. You'll kind of figure it out as you go along. If you have trouble with the next step, fold them in a little more. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start pulling up the petals. So you're going to pinch where you just folded you're going to push that in as you try to pull the petal over. And this is very hard to do without ripping the petal. You'll probably rip it the first time, but you're going to want to push in, pull up, and kind of push that petal from the back and kind of slide it up. Again, you got to push in, and then you have to pull up, and you have to sort of ease that petal up. There's not really a good way for me to describe it. Hopefully you're getting the gist of it watching. It is something you just kind of have to play with the paper, feel how it's folded, and do your best not to rip it, because sometimes it rips. Now we've got our first set of petals up. It's time for the second pair. Now you pinch that, you kind of push into the pocket and round it and pull up on your petal. Do the same thing, kind of pinch and push in. And you can kind of hear my paper ripped. And you ease all 4 of those folded corners up, and then you have your water lily. Now, previously I made the big pink one, and I didn't do one of the folds, which actually made it easier, so you may even want to try starting with this one, and I'll post that in just a second so you guys can see it. Alright, now I'm going to show you guys how to make the larger, kind of simpler one that I made before, because I messed up my steps and I didn't do enough. But if you had trouble with the previous way to do it, you may find this one easier. It may be a good way to start out. I wasn't going to post this because I was like, I messed it up. But it did kind of work, and it does kind of show you a different way to do it. And it also shows you that things take practice. Now we're doing the same thing we did previously. We're making a sort of crosshair by folding 2 big triangles, so we can start folding in. And then you fold your corners to the middle. And again, fold all your corners to the middle. And what I basically did with this one was I skipped one of the fold to the middles, which meant that there weren't as many folds, so it was a little easier to finish things off. But as you could see, it also meant that I had a larger flower and that you could see the white of the back side of the paper, which if you use a double-sided paper that's got color on both sides, that's probably not going to be an issue. You could have different size water lilies. Okay, and then I flipped it over and went into this step. And you can see how it turns out differently. We fold it to the middle again. And you can see how much bigger this square is. Okay, and now we're going to fold in the corners a little bit so we can pull up those petals. And here's where I realized, I don't think I did this right. I missed a fold somewhere. I was like, okay, we'll just keep going. We'll see how it goes. Because I had just folded it to get the purple one we saw. And then I couldn't remember all of the steps. Even though this is a pretty simple series of steps, it's just tricky because folding the petals takes some work. You have to be very gentle with it. Otherwise, it starts to come apart, things tear. All right, now we are going to push in and round out our petals. So you push in, you pull, you kind of pinch it, and you kind of have to like ease it up over the corner. Again, you gotta pinch, and you pull, and you try really hard not to tear that paper, because it really wants to tear. And then the next layer of petals. Now you can see that I've got the white outside, and I ripped that petal. So because the others had an extra fold, there was an extra layer to cover up the white. As you see, I'm like, wait a second. These don't look the same. I have done something wrong. But it's still a water lily. And